dealing with budget resolution. I want to take a couple minutes and just deal with the capital budget portion of it. That was part of this budget resolution.
Well, will the capital be part of the budget resolution?
Yes. It would include all funds.
Okay.
So, go ahead.
It would not include capital carry forwards. So the money that you have, like in the school capital and the money that you have in your capital, those funds will be carried forward, and then the amount over 20% will be automatically appropriated, because that's the way the budget resolution documents written. So we don't have to have a public hearing again. And we did it that way because you would have an airport project that every year had to come back for the same appropriation, and it appeared that the project cost 20 million instead of 5 million, because you don't want to have multiple appropriations.
So if you want to go and put up the slide, and I spent, this is the thing that I'm concerned about. So this is the same chart that we all got from Mr. Ballhofer earlier, showing use of capital funds for various items. And so when you take a look at this, on FY26, FY27, you have approximately $5.5 million that's going to be used for ongoing operating expenses we already talked about. You have about $7 million that's going to transportation. You have $5 million going for school capital. So the $7 million is transportation. We've had this discussion before, that money there is to be set aside so when you have a smart scale problem, you have the money to do it. Smart scales require like a 20%. We've had situations where we've had multi-million-dollar items, and having that money for a smart scale, we have multiple ones, is there. If you're just trying to cut money, yes, you can do that, but then you're going to have the long-term effect of what happens when you have transportation issues. So I think that transportation issue is important. We had discussions with the previous board, and I think that collectively, when we brought that on and said this is something we need to fund as this population grows, at the cost. The school capital, $5 million is probably a reasonable figure. They have $19 million of expected capital requests right now, not including new capital requests. And so if you take a look at the balance at the end of each year, we have for 28, or one other comment, the rollover fund balance of $9 million. That's an assumption. Now, we could say, fine, I'll build that into the operating budget, and that $9 million represents about a 3.5% differential. If I were in Cheryl's situation, I would say, whoa, because that gives you a safety valve. So I'm not trying to put you on the spot. But from her perspective, she's trying to say, if things don't work out, I have a contingency. I think that's just smart planning. But from our perspective, you're making the assumption you're going to have $9 million coming in this year. Even so, you're running out of money in FY28 in 3 years. And if that were the case, then where do you make your cuts? And your cuts are probably come from transportation, maybe from school capital, maybe from maintenance, etc. And this population is growing about 2,000 people per year. And so you're going to have less services with less money. If you add a new high school, if you add Middletown, if you add Jordan Springs, those numbers are in red. We're talking about next year, FY26, 871,000, then 4.9, then 10.1, then 15.2 as additional costs. And you've all heard me say, that how do you fund a new high school? When you add up those numbers, we are looking at a potentially $25 million differential in 4 years. Then how do you fund that? Sharon's made a comment about, revenue. I concur with him. If we can bring in business to cover that, well, right now, our population is growing faster than the business community is bringing in revenue, so we have a disparity there. You've all heard me talk about impact fees, and we'll talk about that later, but that's one way to try to bridge that gap. I was told today that the House sustained the governor's veto on 1% sales tax. So that would have brought in $20 million, and that's out. So looking at this collectively, my question to all of you is, how do we solve what I see coming is a significant deficit? Where do you get the money to do it, or what services do you cut? The people at this table are all conservative. But and I've said, where do we make the adjustments? No one's come up with even $1 million. And as the administrator said, the only areas we've had on growth have been for social services, which is required by law, deputies, and fire and rescue. Everybody else has been about the same on our staff. As the population has increased, that same staff has served a higher number of people, which is making us more efficient. That's a plus. But that scares me, and I'm saying this with a smile. So, for whatever reason, Josh decides not to become chair in 4 years, and Heather's going to run for chair. And she walks in and says, what? And what are you left with me? It's FY29, you're going to give me that type of a deficit? Thank you very much. That's the issue that I think collectively, we need to address. My comments on impact fees is one we can talk about that later. If you have other suggestions, but that's a math problem, and that's the issue that's a big concern to me. I think we just need to do whatever to try to address it. Thank you.
Thank you. I certainly think we need to delve more into the long-term plan, long-term revenue expectations for the county. When we do get more people, that certainly does impact us, their cost. But that also brings people who work and pay as well. So there's a balance there. And then we are working through the process of adopting the impact fees for transportation that the state has allowed us to do, which we approved at the Transportation Committee, I believe. So that's another thing we need to get moving. If that is finished, and I hope that it does, it allows us to assess impact fees, at least for the transportation impact from new development. And that would apply to all new development, regardless of when the buy right or when the building right was granted. So even long ago properties that have the right to build, when they build them, they would have to pay, at least for transportation. So we have a number of things moving, but I agree with you that we need a long-term plan that shows how we can balance our money really well and meet needs.
One more comment. I know the press is here, but this is as much comment to the press as anybody else. The people that come in here pay real estate taxes. So our taxes do increase. It's only covering the operational costs. It does not cover our capital costs. So when people make the comment about, real estate taxes going up, you've got more revenue, that's true. But it's not covering the capital costs. I'm not saying the press is bad on that, but I'm saying the people that read that press article have to understand that just because 1,000 people move in and are paying more in real estate for 1,000 new homes, that doesn't cover the total cost for capital costs. Primarily schools, that's the major one, and then fire and rescue and deputies. So the population just needs to know that.
Thank you. So any other discussion? I think we want a consensus to bring the budget resolution as discussed to us next week, right? And we haven't given you an official consensus. Any other discussion before we go around the table for that? So the proposal is to bring our operational budget as discussed today and previously, all funds, to us at the next Board of Supervisors meeting for adoption. Supervisor Leckridge.
I'm in agreement. Yes.
Supervisor Dunn.
I'm gonna pass.
Supervisor Lear.
Agree.
Supervisor Wells.
No.
Supervisor Jewell.
No.
Vice Chair. And the chair votes aye. So we have 4 in favor. Thank you. So we've gotten through item 3. Item 4 is other. We discussed the closed session on constitutional officer salaries. The session at some point, which seems to be the lowest priority calendar-wise, on outside agencies. What else do we need to consider in this cycle besides the capital items?
Those are the primary meetings, constitutional officers, outside agencies, and then we're going to have a series of meetings to go over the school capital improvement plan.
So I suspect our priority will defer to you to fit in the closed session when we can. So that means how we begin the capital phase of the budget. And I know everyone has said we need to hurry and start working on a solution for schools. We wanted to do that as early as our next work session, which was tentatively next Wednesday. However, to get just with this board, to get our ideas on the table, how to approach that. However, there is the fairly significant meeting from 4 to 6 p.m. next Wednesday at Laurel Ridge Community College, and that's the CTD,
It's the spring meeting for the Stanton District, in which our Secretary of Transportation will be here, as well as our Commonwealth Transportation Board members. It's an annual meeting. Typically, it's been held as long as I've been here at Blue Ridge Community College, so we do have the privilege of it being held in our locality. And I've always tried to make it an opportunity to go and speak to whatever transportation issues we have. It's an excellent opportunity. And so if there is a chance that we could move our work session for next week, if it was convenient with everyone to move it to another day, it would allow anyone to go and speak ahead of that from 4 to 6. My goal would be to get there as early as possible so I could sign up and maybe get the first spot, but there's no guarantee, because again, it's all of the Stanton District and so forth. So I just think, particularly since they've agreed to house it or host it at our end of the district, I would personally not like to have to miss it, but
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, I would just say, we don't all go in past years, and I don't think we all have to, but I'd hate for none of us to show up when they're doing it here. So that's why I would want to at least discuss moving it.
So I concur 100%. I mean, this gives us an opportunity to talk to the Secretary of Transportation, to talk to decision makers who regulate what we get or not get. I think that collectively, we can go and say, here are 3 or 4 projects that are really, really important. Here's the cost, this is why it should be done. To be able to talk to somebody face to face is a whole lot better than an email or phone. And so, I concur 100% on that. I mean,
is there a time next week that the committee would have that we could shift this work session to move forward with the schools, so that we had that open before our board meeting from 4 to 6? That's the question. And also staff, I mean, honestly, I know you all have a lot going on too, so just want to make sure that, because the next one is the school.
If you're looking to do this before next Wednesday, does Monday work? Because Tuesday, I mean, there's a apple blossom thing Tuesday, 6 days, there's a board meeting 7 on Wednesday. If you're gonna do it before then, Monday seems to be the only day, or to meet during the day on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday.
We have done morning meetings. We combined some budget last year, with the finance, or they followed the finance committee, for example. So morning, early in the day is also on the table, I guess.
I could offer up the fact that the April 22nd meeting for transportation at 8:30 has been canceled. So I don't know if it would suit this committee to meet on Monday morning at 8:30, and I'm seeing Heather, and I want to make sure everybody can be a part of it.
Her children will be there, and they'll say, Mom, get going.
Well, it's 9.
Monday, Tuesday doesn't work for me at all, unfortunately.
Yeah, Monday late doesn't work for me.
Does Tuesday morning work? Then, or,
Well, Monday, Tuesday doesn't work at all for Heather, but so,
and all during the day?
It does not.
Okay.
well,
How about 8:30 Wednesday?
I know we have a meeting at 11 o'clock on Wednesday morning. You and I have one on Wednesday morning at 11.
Or 8
So
o'clock?
8 o'clock on Wednesday morning, like we did finance this morning. Does that work for, I know.
That works for me.
Does that work?
Is that better than Monday evening? Or is it
Monday just doesn't.
So the whole- the
Monday,
whole- the whole
Tuesday
day?
is tough.
Monday and Tuesday,
Oh,
right?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, 8 AM Wednesday works, I'm great with that.
That works.
I believe I can do that. Any other? Finance committee as well. if you can make-
I can make it.
But yeah, but Bob has.
You're not subbing, are you? I want to take away
I am
from your
subbing,
subbing.
no, I apologize.
I just have to wait and see. I can say I can be there, but just busiest time of my day.
Quick. Because Bob's he has his own crews he has to put together. If we did it later in the day on Wednesday, like 11 or 12, does that work?
Anytime after 9:30.
If it's daytime after 9:30, let's do 9:30 or 10, so.
We have an 11 o'clock. How about, the afternoon? We could start at lunchtime or, well, no, I think this meeting will probably take longer than an hour. So 1 o'clock,
Okay.
does that work on Wednesday?
That's all right.
Does that work?
We can make it work.
Okay.
So
And does that work?
Yes.
Like 1 o'clock Wednesday on the 24th?
Doesn't work for me. I'm sorry, that's the only time I've got to be.
1 o'clock on
Yeah.
Wednesday, okay?
Can we do, I mean,
So HR is Friday morning, but Thursday morning I don't have
you
every
wanted it
committee on
before
my
the
calendar.
board meeting, is that right?
I don't think there was a set
Oh,
rule
I thought
for the
you wanted it
board.
before the board.
We're just trying to get to it as we promised public in the school system we would. I would like to get to it next week for sure.
All right, I can do Thursday afternoon.
That's 2 days.
Thursday,
Thursday afternoon.
is that what you're talking about, Thursday?
Bob, are we getting into your,
I can make anything work.
I'm out of town.
I'm
Thursday,
trying to not
Friday.
mess up your subject schedule, man.
I'm out of town Thursday, Friday.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
You guys are loose. We'll be back. Let's go back there and talk about that.
8 o'clock Wednesday morning, does that work for everyone?
Would 9:30 work, would that work before your guys' 11? Where is the 11?
At Frederick Water, so 15 minutes from here, so we'd have to leave probably by 10:30. So we'd only have
That doesn't give you much time.
9 to 10:30 to discuss.
Would 8 o'clock work for you?
It's fine, I was wondering about.
The
No.
majority of the board can be there at 8 o'clock, have it at 8 o'clock. And it may work out that I'm able
It
to
should
get
be.
there, I never know. Day by day for me.
So are we back to Wednesday at 8 or?
Wednesday,
Wednesday at 8.
Okay. So if anybody has any concerns, please don't be shy to let Mr. Ballhopper know, and if we have to, there might be a way to adjust. I hate to open that can of worms, but we're not trying to leave anyone out.
And for Wednesday at 8, did everybody push it back to 8? I'm just fine Bob time. Can everybody move it back to 8:30?
I'm okay, just,
Not so you said
you
this-
got the majority, do it,
Okay.
do it, do it.
And is there a problem in?
No, we're good.
So 8 AM on the 24th, and would you send us a reminder, please?
I think it's the 25th, right?
I'm sorry, yes, no, 24th.
24th.
24th is a Wednesday. And what specifically, because I guess I've said at multiple meetings what I wanted to see for us going forward, so will we have any information available to us at this meeting, or where will we go with this?
Well, I brought hard copies, and I'm gonna email it out. This is the information that was used, and a lot of it was distributed to us at earlier meetings. It's the information they used to make the determination of the needs for their, fourth high school and the capital plan. So I'll give you the hard copies on this, and I'll also email, because I left out some of the, information that really wasn't necessary. So I'll give these you all to distribute. We're in the process, and I've been working actually with Wyatt and other staff members, of defining someone we can call an outside expert to provide assistance to us. And the real trick with that is the type of expert you need, because I know you need someone with estimating skills, but more important than the estimating skills, you need someone who has experience determining how to build high schools, what high schools, because what drives the cost in high schools is your initial way you design what your school's gonna have, i.e. the number of buildings, the fields, how much open space and such. So that's the real area where you have the ability to control your costs. We've discussed, we know of, I know I've received some emails about people that do this. There's also an engineer and architectural firm in Virginia, up in Northern Virginia, who's worked on numerous school projects. We're gonna be looking at that. The one trick is that sometimes is finding someone who's willing to do this, who is not afraid of possibly alienating a school or a school system, or two, the fact that they can be a part of this means they may disqualify themselves from participating in the actual construction process. So our goal is to find someone who can do that. I don't imagine, obviously, even if we find someone, then we have to figure out the procurement methodology to hire them, how we're gonna do that. So we won't have those answers. We won't have that person on board by next Wednesday, but we will have some answers. We're gonna distribute this and what they based it on. We will also go over some things. There's, I think, 4 different methodologies that the school systems can use for building schools, and we will cover those different types of ways of doing it. I don't remember all the acronyms, but one of them's public, private, and different ways of funding it. So we can have a lot of good basic information to at least get the conversation started. And what I will do is I'm gonna try and get, and I'm not sure if it would be small enough to distribute, copies or information on the last time they went through a high school, because they did a significant amount of work, engineering, architectural. So having the ability, if it's a link, to have people take a look at that.
The information that you're holding over there, are you gonna distribute that this evening so we have a chance to look at it? Okay, so that would be really helpful.
Yes, I'm gonna give hard copies, then tomorrow I'll follow up with emails, because for some people, the emails may work better, that way you have both alternatives.
Thank you.
And if I may, just real quick, and my understanding is just to be sure on these meeting dates, May 1st, I believe, because of events and such, was not to be discussed. Obviously, we'll discuss at the next meeting, the 24th, a future date, but I think our calendars, everyone's agreed to not go for May 1st.
Yes, sir. At least it looks like.
I would agree with that.
That's fine. So that is our future work sessions. The only date we set is next Wednesday at 8 a.m. I presume we don't need to set the other dates. You can advise us when you think you can fit in a closed session on one item, and outside agencies would be after we get through capital perhaps.
Right, and I think the goal will be perhaps at that meeting next week is to come up with those dates too, to get those scheduled at the meeting next week.
Okay, that concludes our agenda. See, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chairman, I'd
Yes.
like to borrow a couple seconds of our time to share a couple things. Over the process of this budget process, salaries in general, we're gonna land, it looks like, at 4%. I question the good faith as to how we get to 4%. Schools are going to give an average of 6 to 8% in their pay adjustments for the next fiscal year. The school's administration and school board advocate for the salaries of their employees. Not sure who is advocating for county staff. With that said, not sure why county employees would not be on the same percentage adjustment as school employees. And what brought it to my mind is last week was talking about competing with other localities. We're competing within our own organization. Mr. Dunn, appreciate this. The 4% that we are talking about with core CPI is at 3.8%, and Fed Chairman says there's not going to be any reductions in interest rates going forward probably for this year, is what I read out of that. So I just share that with you because sometimes I think it gets lost in the conversation. We do have some senior staff. We have to have an attractive workplace and jobs for the next generation that comes through, and I think that's important. The other item briefly talked about, came up this evening, long-term for the revenue. From that perspective, I got the personal property book last week. Those are hard numbers. The real estate book for next year is going to be difficult because it's in a reassessment year. So starting in September, you're going to end up still talking about the expenditure side, but you don't know where you're going to land on the revenue side. When you don't get numbers until April, and I'll leave it up to the commissioner when she's going to turn the new real estate book loose, but it is a reassessment year. So there is effort put into revenues. I'm not sure what the comment, but we need to look at that more. I know staff that collect revenue, that is all congregated with the finance department. So from that perspective, and the other thing I will say, sometimes if decisions could be made quicker, we can get through the budget process quicker. Thank you.
Yeah, for my part, I had several people note the disparity between the school system raises and the rest of the county raises. To open that can of worms now would be difficult, but it is certainly a correct observation. So going to comment on something else you said, but I forget. So anyone else want to make a comment or we adjourn?
I just wanted to make a quick comment, the numbers that, we handed out earlier, back in regards to real estate, personal property, we are running pretty much, straight down the line. We are up, 3.3%, over last year's numbers, and that is actually on target for what, the finance
3% on, and 3.3% you said on what?
excuse me, 3.3 million. So we are spot on at 78 million to what was originally,
And that's in what?
that's in, real estate. So that's pretty much, we were less than $100,000 difference between what we originally projected to what we're actually pulling.
Okay. So that was my other comment in reply, and that was, it's true perhaps that we won't have commissioners' input as early as, finished work as early as we'd like. But we do know, we can get a sense of how much homes are appraising in general. So that gives us an indication that property values in this county are still going up. The only question is, how accurately we can estimate that before the assessments are actually finished.
We also have some new software so that everybody's getting adjusted to that. We're hoping to close out as much as we can prior to actually moving and going live with Vision, our new software. So it's a little bit of a process.
Question?
Just one last, I've never seen you. Oh, okay. Mr. Bodenhofer, when we look at the score, we have our school meeting next time, and I know you have the information for the Fourth High School. Is it possible to get the information for Jordan Spring Elementary as well, please?
Yes, a not a significant amount, but yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?